This podcast is made possible by you, the supporters of WPLN and WNXP, Nashville Public Radio.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's June 3rd, 2025. On this day in 2018, a beached pilot whale died in Thailand after veterinarians tried for several days to save its life. After the animal passed, they examined the body and found a tremendous amount of plastic in its belly. NPR reported the animal's stomach held more than 17 pounds. That included 80 plastic bags, which biologists believe the whale mistook for food. And once inside the stomach, the plastic just stayed there, eventually leaving little room for real food. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with historical context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. You know, we hear these stories every so often out of places like Thailand or Indonesia, and it's all too easy to shake our heads and feel lucky not to live in a place where the water is so full of trash. And it is true that there's an outsized amount of waste mismanagement in certain Asian Pacific nations, but this truly is an international problem. And in fact, later in the same year the whale died in Thailand, 2018, we learned some really uncomfortable facts about a waterway in our own backyard. A scientist named Andreas Foth swam the entire length of the Tennessee River, collecting data all the way along his 652-mile journey. He took daily water samples, analyzing the liquid to find out what was dissolved and carried in that H2O. And the concentration of microplastics was so astoundingly high, Foth was initially convinced that he'd made some kind of mistake. He double-checked. He triple-checked. And sure enough, the numbers were accurate. At first, Foth compared the Tennessee to another waterway he'd studied in the same fashion, Germany's Rhine River. He found that the concentration of microplastics was 8,000 times higher than in the Rhine. So he started looking at the data on other rivers. He compared the Tennessee to the Yangtze in China, which is notoriously polluted with plastics. In fact, scientists estimate the Yangtze alone is responsible for 55% of all riverborne microplastics that enter the planet's oceans. And the Tennessee River's microplastic concentration was 80 times higher than the Yangtze. Now, in a lot of ways, microplastics are a much trickier thing than the bulky plastics that we find in the bellies of aquatic animals. For one thing, as the name suggests, they're tiny. You can drink them, breathe them in even, and have no clue. One theory for why there's so much in the Tennessee River is that they're in the leachate of our landfills. That's the fluid that drains out of landfills and ends up in groundwater or nearby streams and rivers. The idea is that all the plastic that gets thrown away sheds microplastics into that leachate. That's one reason that reducing our use of plastic or recycling what we do have is such a big deal. The less there is in the landfill, the fewer microplastics will be shed into the environment. When those materials enter the body, they don't just get stuck in our bellies. Thankfully, scientists believe we're kind of okay at flushing the bulk of them out in our bodily waste, but some does stick around, and it can end up embedded in tissue all over your body. The smallest particles make some viruses look big, so unsurprisingly, they can cross the barrier of the stomach lining and enter your bloodstream. But unlike a virus or bacteria, the immune system's response doesn't really have any effect on those microplastics, so we're all sort of building up stockpiles, like it or not. They collect in our lungs. They take up residence in our brains. Studies have found they may contribute to heart attacks, liver disease, and strokes, and they could be exacerbating your IBS or chronic sinus problems. And microplastics have a connection to another problem that WPLN's Caroline Eggers has reported on quite a bit. One of the ways that so-called forever chemicals end up in our environment is through plastics that have been treated with those chemicals. Where one goes, the other follows. And in the case of those chemicals, when they make it into the body, they potentially cause dire stuff like cancer. And so, when we are faced with a challenge like the nearly at-capacity landfill in Rutherford County and the question of what to do with all our waste when it closes, that also brings a certain degree of opportunity. This is our chance to really make big moves away from the kind of waste handling that may be filling our state's largest river with really nasty stuff, gross stuff, that ends up inside all of our bodies. In just a few minutes, during this year's CMA Fest, one showcase is happening well off of Lower Broad, playing to a largely immigrant audience. That's coming up after the newscast.
At WPLN, we tell stories about honoring our families.
If he become a monk, that means that mom and dad will go to heaven when they pass away.
And preserving memories.
I never heard of a Rosenwald school. Nobody never told me that's where I went.
I'm Char Daston, and my reporting connects you with your neighbors and the important moments in their lives.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. 2 U.S. congressional committees have confirmed they are looking into Nashville's response to federal immigration activity. WPLN's Miriam reports the probe alleges that Mayor Freddie O'Connell's policies, quote, threaten to chill immigration enforcement in the city.
The House Judiciary Committee and the House Security Committee are asking for internal communication from the mayor's office about ICE after last month's sweeps. The probe says that O'Connell issued an executive order mandating that Metro departments tell the mayor's office if they've interacted with ICE. But that executive order was established under the previous mayor. O'Connell sped up the timeline for when departments have to notify the mayor's office from 3 days to 1. O'Connell tells reporters he's not worried about the probe. Miriam WPLN News.
A new report is calling on Metro to make a number of quick changes to improve the safety of city streets for pedestrians and cyclists. Advocacy group Walk Bike Nashville released their State of Our Streets report today. It details wins and failures of city government. The big win is the protected bike lanes created on 12th Avenue South. Some of the challenges include a decrease in the number of available bike share bikes, the removal of cycling infrastructure on 9th Avenue North and downtown, and the proposal to build the future East Bank Boulevard near the football stadium as a, quote, unsafe 6-lane highway. The report makes recommendations that can be executed over the next 90 days. Those include contracting with a new bike share provider and adding specific staff for transportation. A Nashville-based company will head up efforts to build affordable housing as part of the East Bank redevelopment. Last year, the city hired an out-of-state firm as the master developer on the project, which aims to extend downtown across the river to 30 acres around the new Titan Stadium. The deal with the Fallon Company calls for at least 5 residential buildings, including more than 300 affordable units in the initial phase. Now, Fallon has tapped Music Row-based Elmington Capital Group as its affordable housing partner. Groundbreaking in the first phase of redevelopment is anticipated for next year. One of Nashville's long-running encampments has now been cleared by the city's Office of Homeless Services. Known as Old Tent City, the camp was home to dozens of people along the bank of the Cumberland River just south of downtown. It also overlaps with the future site of Wharf Park. Last year, Metro demolished the largest structures at the camp. Then 2 months ago, officials handed out 60-day eviction notices. Residents petitioned unsuccessfully for more time. Homeless Services says about 100 people were impacted, and that the majority of them, 81, have moved to transitional units at a former motel in South Nashville. A handful have since found permanent housing. Metro says nonprofits will continue providing services. The Old Tent City closure is the latest in what Metro calls its housing surge approach. The city's been clearing camps with an emphasis on finding stable housing for residents. Nashvillians have a chance to share their thoughts on the city's budget proposal tonight. The Metro Council's annual public comment on the spending plan is set for 6:30 at the historic Metro Courthouse. Mayor Freddie O'Connell's proposal features a larger budget than previous years, with increased funding for Metro schools, parks, police, and more. That would be possible, in large part, because of a property tax increase. After the hearing, council members will likely propose substitute budgets. The council will have to agree on one by the end of the month. Otherwise, O'Connell's proposal will go into effect. Residents wishing to speak will have to sign up beforehand. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes each. High-profile local activist and author Miriam calls herself a proud single mom who advocates for business and economic opportunities for women and the younger generation. In an interview with WPLN's This Is Nashville, she recalls how growing up as a second-generation immigrant would later inspire her.
There was a look. There was a predominant face, and I didn't look like that. And a lot of times people pointed that out. Kids pointed that out. My lunch didn't look or smell like the lunches because my mom made me home-cooked meals for lunch. And so I felt different. It was hard, and it impacted me quite a bit. But also that level of self-doubt turns into a superpower later.
Abel Fawsley used that superpower to fuel her advocacy. She ran unsuccessfully for a congressional seat last year, and she shares what that experience was like and what it takes to be a single parent. You can find the full episode on This Is Nashville at WPLN.org or wherever you get your podcasts. A zebra who disappeared from its owner is still on the loose. WPLN's Cynthia Abrams reports the animal's escape has caused quite the stir in Rutherford County.
The zebra was brought home as a new pet Friday night. But by Saturday morning, the animal was missing. It was later spotted near the interstate, leading to a lane shutdown. When its owner showed up, it chased the zebra, who ran off into the woods.
People who spot the zebra are asked to call the Rutherford County Sheriff's Office. Zebras are legal to own in Tennessee. No special permit is required. Well, there's good news and bad news for University of Tennessee sports fans. First, the bad. The UT softball team was eliminated from the Women's College World Series with a loss to Texas yesterday. But the men's baseball team will play another day. They advance to the Super Regional and will face Arkansas in a best-of-3 series this weekend. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. Earlier this year, senior music writer Julie Height spoke with Salvadoran-American country artist Angie Kay about how her professional journey motivated her to start the Country Latin Association. Angie thought it would take a while to get attention with her advocacy, but they sat down together again because things have started to happen quickly.
Here we are just a couple of months later, and some of those things are coming to fruition, or at least getting closer to being realized at CMA Fest this year.
The Country Latin Association is putting on the Latin Roots stage, which is at the close-up stage inside of Music City Centers. And you can listen to the stories of some great artists. So we have Mariah, who's amazing. She's up and coming. She has Mexican roots. We have Kat Luna, who has Cuban roots. And we have Los Hermanos Mendoza, which I love. This is their first time playing in Nashville. They're from Bakersfield, California. And they're these three brothers that just sing these old school country sounding songs. They have a huge, we're talking about followers in the hundreds of thousands. And I have no doubt these guys are going to be massive.
I've been to LA, I've seen the bright lights, I've been to the East Coast, been searching far and wide.
So those are three artists. The last 15 minutes, we convinced one of the biggest artists in the world, Karin Leon, who is a regional Mexican artist that is now crossing over and making songs in country music. And he is going to answer questions the last 15 minutes and then do his meet and greet directly after that.
He will not only be doing what you just mentioned, he'll also be appearing on the largest stage at CMA Fest, on the stadium.
That's right.
With Cody Johnson. What is historic about that?
It's so huge. Here's the thing. With Latin artists and with people of color that are playing country music, there tends to be this narrative that is Black people or Latin people don't listen to country music. It's just not true. There's so many people with the values of that. We're just not seeing them. So when you start to see that on the stage, the conversation becomes less about that doesn't work and more about in what ways does that work. And I think there's a lot of people that would love Mexican country music, or I'm from El Salvador, like where my perspective comes from, or Kat Luna coming from Cuba. So I think hearing these stories and hearing the values of family and making things work and going through pain and getting out the other side and hearing that from different parts of the world, how is that not exciting?
I have reported on a lot of different kinds of work to make way for underrepresented voices in country music. But for you, from the very beginning, there's been this component of demonstrating there are vast audiences all over the world for an array of different kinds of Latin country artists. And I wonder why you feel like that is particularly important and effective making the case to Nashville.
To say, don't you want to change things? Don't you want to go for the big money? Because to me, the big money happens when you take a chance. So like, that's always been my pitch. It's like, it doesn't have to be me. In fact, I think the biggest chance for a crossover is going to be a Mexican-American artist because their regional Mexican market is so huge. Sonically, it's very, very similar. But yeah, I just think it's really important to see the opportunity in it because it's not a charity case. You have this pie graph that everybody's fighting over of US dollars. What if I told you you could quadruple it without even trying just by sending your artist on a Brazilian tour?
So much of the activity at CMA Fest has always been centered downtown, but the show that you're bringing to Plaza Mariachi, tell me about how you're reaching out to Hispanic communities in Nashville, including those who are living in very real fear of ICE raids.
A lot of people are afraid of leaving their homes. Just for a second, imagine someone in your family being essentially kidnapped and no one notifying your family for over a week. They won't even release the names of the people they've taken. And many of these are legal citizens. And it's causing a lot of trouble with South Nashville businesses. So Plaza Mariachi is one of those places where we spend our money matters. South Nashville is Nashville. It's not a different city. It's literally Nashville. So if you want to support your local people that are struggling, that makes a lot of sense to me. Where a lot of the industry makes a mistake is they will market a Latin artist by saying, you're Latin, they'll come. Communities tend to have patterns of where they go hang out, where they feel comfortable.
Safety has a lot to do with that.
So I think it's really important that we change the narrative. It's like, no, we have to go to them because they don't need us. The Latin music world is making plenty of money without paying attention to the United States, really. Also, if you're only trying to take something from a community, you're gonna not get the result that you would have if you showed up wanting to support the community you want everything from.
Drove out to a field off of Highway 9. Opened the bottle and cursed out the sun. Drank till the
Senior music writer Julie Height spoke with Nashville artist and advocate Angie Kay ahead of CMA Fest. The Country Con Corazon showcase comes to Plaza Mariachi on Friday, June 6th. Thanks for listening to the Nash Villager podcast. We take this look at Nashville news every weekday. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and tell a friend or give us a mention on your socials. It really helps get the word out. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can become a member at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.